Diana's hands trembled as she wiped her tears. She stood in the center of the living room, still wearing the diamond ring Daniel had slipped onto her finger just 2 days ago. The ring caught the late afternoon light, glinting like a promise of forever, but her mother's words were cutting that promise into pieces. "Mom, I don't understand you anymore," Diana said, voice breaking. "Daniel is perfect. He's everything I've ever prayed for. He treats me like I'm the only woman in the world. So, tell me, what is wrong with him?" Across the room her mother, Evelyn, sat stiffly on the worn armchair, her face pale but hard as stone. Evelyn's fingers were clasped so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. "You are not marrying that boy, Diana. Not while I'm alive." The words were like a slap. "Why?" Diana's voice cracked. "Why, Mom? You can't even give me a single reason. Not one. All you do is sit there, looking at me with those cold eyes, as if I've done something wrong by falling in love with him. What did Daniel ever do to you?" Evelyn's lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but she stopped herself. Her gaze darted away, landing on the framed family photo by the TV. It was of Diana, her late father, and Evelyn, taken before the quiet, suffocating years of grief had swallowed their home. Diana's chest rose and fell quickly, frustration burning through her tears. "Oh, I get it now. Maybe you're just jealous. Maybe you're bitter because I'm marrying someone who's not like Dad. Someone who isn't struggling, someone who's actually going to give me the life you never had." Evelyn's head snapped up, her face twisted with a mix of pain and anger. "Don't you dare talk about your father like that. You don't know half of what I've been through to raise you. To protect you. Protect me," Diana shouted, her sobs choking her voice. "From what, Mom? Daniel is rich, intelligent, kind. He's done everything right. He respects you. He sends you gifts. He calls you Mama, like you're his own. What more do you want?" Evelyn stood, her hands trembling. For a brief moment, her eyes glistened, and Diana saw fear there, a fear that didn't belong in a conversation about love. Evelyn turned away, walking toward the window, staring at nothing. "I will not give my blessing," Evelyn whispered. "Not for this wedding. Not for Daniel. I don't care how much you love him. This marriage will not happen." Diana froze, her heart pounding against her ribs. She stared at her mother's back, the words replaying in her head. "This marriage will not happen." "Well, I've had enough," Diana said, her voice suddenly quiet but firm. "I'm marrying Daniel, with or without your blessing." The silence that followed felt heavier than the walls around them. Evelyn didn't turn. She didn't speak. But Diana could feel the weight of something unspoken, pressing between them, threatening to break everything apart. The first time Diana saw Daniel, it wasn't some grand romantic moment. No dramatic music. No bumping into each other at a bookstore or knocking over a tray of coffee. It was at a tech seminar in Victoria Island, and he was the keynote speaker. She hadn't even planned to attend. Her friend Cynthia had begged her to come, promising lunch after and the possibility of meeting tech bros with six-packs and Teslas. Diana had rolled her eyes. But when Daniel walked on stage, the room shifted. He didn't just speak, he commanded silence, attention, curiosity. He wore a dark native kaftan, sleeves rolled just enough to show toned forearms, and when he smiled, it wasn't cocky. It was warm. Soft. A kind of smile that made you feel like he already knew your story, and he liked you anyway. She remembered nudging Cynthia. Why's he talking like that? Like, he actually cares about what he's saying. Cynthia whispered back, "That's Daniel Olyamide, CEO of Blue Circuit. Billionaire. But low-key. Doesn't flaunt." Diana hadn't expected him to approach her after the Q&A, but he did. Complimented her question, something about cybersecurity ethics, and offered her a coffee before she could even think of a response. From there, it was like falling into a rhythm she didn't know she needed. Daniel wasn't just rich or successful. He listened. He remembered small things, her dislike for onions, her obsession with mystery novels, how she hated sleeping with the door cracked open. He never made her feel small for dreaming or uncertain for hesitating. And the way he looked at her, that was what broke her defenses. It wasn't the kind of look that made her feel like a prize. It was the kind that made her feel seen. Like she was known, fully, and still cherished. One rainy evening, as they sat in his car outside her apartment, windshield wipers humming a slow rhythm, he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I want to marry you," he'd said, so simply, like he was asking her what she wanted for dinner. She laughed nervously. "You don't even know what you're getting into." "I know I love you," he replied. "And that's a good place to start." That night, Dianna cried. Not from fear, but from the strange, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, someone had chosen her completely. Now, staring at her phone, she scrolled through their photos. Beach trips, game nights, her mom's birthday dinner. Daniel always smiling, always present. He had done everything right. And yet, her mother hated him. She couldn't stop wondering. Why? To anyone on the outside, Daniel was the dream every Nigerian mother claimed to pray for. He had no scandals attached to his name. No ex-girlfriend drama. No baby mamas from the past haunting the future. He wasn't flashy, yet he wasn't stingy. He gave without making you feel like you owed him. When he visited Diana's home, he brought thoughtful gifts, once even bringing Evelyn a rare herbal tea blend from Kenya because he overheard her complaining about her blood pressure. He'd call her mama with ease, asking after her health, complimenting her cooking even when she barely said more than 2 words to him. He never disrespected her silence. Never forced himself into her space. To Diana's friends, he was a catch. To Lagos society, he was the quiet one from the Olyamide family, the one who didn't run to the press, who didn't flaunt his wealth on Instagram, who still attended tech summits and volunteered at youth mentorship programs in Aja. To Diana, he was home. So the more her mother pulled away, the more it hurt. Because there was nothing for Evelyn to find. Daniel wasn't hiding skeletons. He was offering love. One afternoon, a week after the proposal, Daniel came over for dinner. He was his usual thoughtful self, helping set the table and even kneeling to fix the flickering power extension in the kitchen. Evelyn barely said a word. She didn't even touch her food. When Daniel stepped outside to take a business call, Dianna turned to her mother with frustration bubbling in her chest. "Mama, why are you like this?" she whispered harshly. "Can't you even pretend to be happy for me?" Evelyn didn't respond at first. She just stared at the untouched plate in front of her, fingers loosely clasped in her lap. Then she looked up slowly, her voice low and calm. "Are you really this blind, Dianna?" Dianna blinked. "Blind to what?" "You don't know anything about that boy." "That's not true. I know everything. And if there's something I don't know, it's because you won't tell me." Their eyes locked, and for a split second, Evelyn's resolve flickered. Something haunted passed across her face. But then it was gone, replaced by the same quiet resistance. "You're not marrying him," she said simply. "That's all." When Daniel came back in, smiling like nothing had happened, Dianna could barely meet his eyes. She wanted to cry and scream at the same time. Because he had done everything right. And somehow, it still wasn't enough. The first time Dianna heard the name Uncle Felix, she was 12. It was during a tense argument between her parents, one of those late-night whispers that weren't exactly whispers. Her father had stormed out of the bedroom, muttering something about never forgiving that man, and Evelyn had just sat there in the hallway, holding her chest like her heart had cracked open. Dianna had peeked from behind the doorframe, confused. She'd never met this Felix. He wasn't at birthdays. Not at Christmas. Not in any family photo. Not even mentioned in passing. Years later, she asked her mother who he was. Evelyn simply replied, "Your father's younger brother. We don't speak of him in this house." She never pushed. Not then. But now, sitting in her room, trying to process her mother's unexplained hatred for Daniel, that old memory came rushing back. Could there be a connection? Was that why her mom was so tense every time Daniel's family came up? She had asked Daniel once, casually, about his parents. He told her he was raised by his uncle and aunt. Wonderful people, he'd said with a smile. His parents had died when he was just a baby. He had no memory of them. At the time, it hadn't seemed unusual. Tragic, yes, but not strange. Nigeria was full of stories like that. But now it haunted her. She remembered how her mother had gone quiet the day Daniel first took her to meet his parents. Evelyn had stared at the photo Daniel showed of the couple, his so-called uncle and aunt, and her lips had gone thin. She'd handed the phone back without a word. Dianna had brushed it off then, thinking it was Evelyn just being difficult again. But now she felt like a shadow had been cast over everything. A few days after the dinner tension, Dianna went to visit her cousin Amaka. She needed space, a break, someone who wouldn't make her feel like she was drowning in secrets. Amaka, ever nosy and unfiltered, threw her legs up on the couch and asked, "So your man, he's related to the Olumides from Ikoyi, right?" Dianna nodded. "Yeah, that's his family." Amaka paused, frowning. "Didn't you guys have Waala with one of them years ago? I swear I remember Mama shouting something about a Felix and—" "That's enough," Dianna had cut in sharply. "Please, Amaka." But it was too late. The whisper had returned. The ghost of Uncle Felix. And suddenly, Dianna realized, everyone in her family had buried something. The hospital was quiet, too quiet for a Friday morning in Lagos. The kind of quiet that made Diana's skin itch beneath her blouse as she and Daniel sat side by side in the waiting area. She shifted on the plastic chair, crossing and uncrossing her legs. Daniel, ever composed, leaned back with a soft smile, scrolling through his phone like this was any other errand. But Dianna couldn't relax. She had heard of the mandatory premarital blood testing, a common enough tradition in their culture. To check for sickle cell compatibility, genetic disorders, nothing out of the ordinary. A routine requirement. Still, something gnawed at her. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked gently, turning to her. She nodded too quickly. "Just nerves. Hospitals make me uneasy." He chuckled. "You're not the one getting surgery, babe. We'll be fine." She forced a smile, but her heart felt like it was beating behind her eyes. The nurse eventually called them in. Dianna went first. The lab technician was kind, making small jokes as he drew her blood. She tried to smile back. Daniel went in next. He winked at her before disappearing into the room. When he returned a few minutes later, he looked completely unfazed, sipping bottled water and talking about what they should eat after. "Suya or umla?" he asked playfully. "Neither," Dianna muttered, gripping her bag tightly. They were told the results would be ready in 3 days. But 2 days later, Dianna got a call. A doctor, not the front desk. "Miss Dianna, we need you to come in. There's a matter we'd like to clarify regarding your test results." Her stomach dropped. Daniel offered to drive her, but she told him she needed to handle it alone, blamed it on stress. He didn't push, just kissed her forehead and told her to call once she was done. The doctor's office was small and neat, a faint scent of antiseptic in the air. He greeted her gently, then tapped a folder in front of him. "We ran the standard compatibility tests," he began, "and something unusual came up." Dianna sat up straight. "Unusual how?" "There's a high probability of a familial link between you and your fiancé. Genetically speaking, you two share significant markers that go beyond what we typically see in unrelated individuals." Dianna blinked. I don't understand. Have either of you been adopted? Any known family ties, even distant ones?" "No," she whispered. "No, nothing like that." He gave her a kind but cautious look. "You may want to discuss this with your parents, particularly your mother. Sometimes these things aren't always spoken about." Dianna sat frozen. The office felt smaller. her throat dry. She left without saying a word. As she stepped out into the parking lot, the sun beat down like judgment. And for the first time since Daniel had proposed, she felt afraid. Evelyn sat by the window, unmoving. The afternoon light stretched across the floor like a silent clock, and Dianna stood across from her, arms folded so tightly it felt like her own skin was suffocating her. She had not told Daniel what the doctor said. Not yet. She couldn't. Not until she got something, anything, from her mother. And that meant coming here, alone, again, to the woman who had given her nothing but cold refusals. "Mama," Dianna said, her voice low but trembling. "I went for the blood test. The one they make you do before marriage." Evelyn didn't look up. Her hands were in her lap, still as stone. Dianna stepped closer. "They said something came up. Something unusual." Still nothing. Dianna swallowed hard. "They said Daniel and I share certain genetic markers. That we could be related, like family related." Her voice cracked on the last word. Finally, Evelyn blinked. But still, no words. "Mama," Dianna said, louder now, sharper, cutting through the silence. "Whatever you have to say, say it. If you know something, stop playing games with me. I'm losing my mind here." Evelyn's eyes slowly lifted, and for a moment Dianna thought she saw something there. A crack in the surface. A tremble. But it vanished just as quickly. She stood up, steady, and walked past Dianna toward the hallway. "No," Dianna said, turning to block her. "You don't get to walk away from this." Evelyn stopped. "Sit down." "What?" "I said sit down, Dianna." Dianna hesitated, but eventually did. She perched on the edge of the couch, her breath shallow. Evelyn sat again by the window, still not looking at her. "I should have told you a long time ago. But I was afraid. And ashamed. And maybe I thought God wouldn't let this happen." Dianna leaned forward, hands clenched. "What are you talking about?" Evelyn turned her face toward her, slowly. Eyes heavy, mouth trembling, the words close. But she said nothing. Just silence. And then, tears. Evelyn began to weep. Silently, violently. Her shoulders shook, and she covered her face with both hands like she was trying to hide from the truth itself. Dianna stood slowly, heart pounding. "Mama." "I can't," Evelyn whispered through her fingers. "Not yet." Then she stood up and walked away, tears trailing down her cheeks. Dianna stood frozen, helpless, breath shallow, a sickness rising in her chest. She didn't know what the truth was. But whatever it was, it had broken her mother. And that was enough to break her too. She picked up her bag and walked out the front door without another word. The sun was brutal that day. Not harsh, not cruel, just bright enough to make the white canopies sparkle and the gold embroidery on the usher's agbatas shimmer. Everything looked perfect. The flowers. The music. The gleaming floor of the rented Lagos event hall. It was the kind of wedding society blogs would later call tastefully opulent. The guest list read like a soft roll call of the rich and rising, tech founders, influencers, politicians' wives, and Nollywood stars discreetly hiding behind sunglasses. Photographers moved like trained dancers, snapping every angle of the arrangements. The mirrored aisle, the crystal chandelier, the floral arch. And at the center of it all, standing confidently in his custom white tuxedo, was Daniel Olyamide. He looked like a man made for the altar, tall, composed, perfectly groomed. His friends surrounded him, cracking jokes to ease his nerves. But he barely laughed. His eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. "Any word from her?" he asked quietly, tugging at the gold cufflink on his wrist. "No," one of his groomsmen said, eyes darting to his phone. "But don't worry. It's Lagos. Traffic is a legit excuse." Daniel tried to smile. Inside, the room filled. The string quartet played a soft rendition of Aces, The Beginning. The bridal chair sat empty, decorated with fresh orchids and gold detail. Her name, Dianna, spelled out in soft pink on a display board beside it. Everyone waited. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The whispers started. Heads turned toward the door. A few guests checked their watches. The officiating minister looked nervously at his program. Daniel paced. He stopped checking his phone. It hadn't buzzed. No call. No message. Then someone walked up to him, his event planner, panicked but trying to smile. "We've tried reaching her. She's not picking. Her stylist hasn't seen her. She never arrived at the bridal suite." Daniel stared at her. "What are you saying?" She hesitated, then gently said, "We think something may have happened. Should we postpone the ceremony?" For the first time, Daniel looked around the room. All eyes were on him. He felt the weight of every lens, every whisper, every future headline. The groom left at the altar. But all he could think was, why? What happened? He stepped away from the stage, his face unreadable. At that very moment, somewhere across Lagos, Dianna sat alone in her apartment, her wedding dress untouched on the bed. Her phone was on silent. Her eyes were swollen. And the love of her life was being humiliated in front of everyone. Daniel sat in silence. The apartment, once full of wedding gifts and white roses, now felt like a tomb. He was still in his shirt from earlier, the tux jacket abandoned on the armrest, gold cufflinks gone. One of them had popped off at the altar when he clenched his fists too tight. He hadn't picked it up. His phone buzzed. A message from Dianna. Her name. On his screen. For a full minute, he just stared. Then slowly, with a thumb that trembled harder than it should, he opened it. But before his eyes could make sense of the words, flashback, hours before the wedding. Dianna had woken up glowing. It was finally happening. The stylist was on her way. The gown was hanging like a dream against the closet door. The whole of Lagos was waiting. But then Evelyn showed up, uninvited and shaking. Dianna had barely gotten up from her breakfast when her mother ambushed her at the kitchen entrance. "I need to talk to you," Evelyn had said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dianna had sighed. "Mama, please, I have to start makeup by 9. You've made your point. Let's not do this today." But Evelyn had grabbed her arm, gently but urgently. "Dianna, listen to me, please. I've kept this in for too long. I was going to let you go through with it. But God won't let me." "Mama, what is it? You're scaring me." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "I should have told you a long time ago. Daniel is your brother." Everything inside Dianna froze. "What? When your father and I had no money, before you were even 2, I got pregnant again. We couldn't afford another child. Your Uncle Felix and his wife had been barren for years. They offered to raise him as their own. We made the exchange quietly. No birth record, no drama. I thought we'd never cross paths." Dianna stumbled backward, nearly tripping over her heels. Her chest tightened. She shook her head violently. "You're lying." "I'm not," Evelyn whispered, falling to her knees in the middle of the kitchen. "He's your blood. Your father's blood. I thought this would stay buried forever. Until you brought him home." Diana's makeup artist would later call and call and call. She never answered. Back to present. Daniel stared at the message. "Daniel. I'm sorry. I don't have the strength to call you. I've been crying for hours, and I still don't know how to say this. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I found out something I never imagined could be true. I can't marry you. Not because I don't want to, but because I'm not allowed to. You were the best part of my life. But we were never supposed to meet like this. Never supposed to fall like this. I'm leaving the country. I need space. I need to forget, if that's even possible. Everything here reminds me of you. Of us. Of what we almost had. Brother. Daniel didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. The message burned into his vision. The word, brother, slammed through his chest like a thunderclap. And then, silence. Not just in the room, but inside him. A silence louder than any heartbreak he'd ever imagined. Thank you for watching. If you're not following us, you might never find us again. Subscribe now and tell us what shocked you most in the comments.